Dexter's opening his lab to the public, and you've got a front row seat. Stay on your best behavior, and whatever you do, don't push any buttons. Welcome to Dexter's Laboratory on Boomerang.
Dexter's Laboratory is one of my all-time favorite cartoons. It's just that simple. Even when the show was at its worst, in my opinion, it managed to still be somewhat entertaining. Well, maybe not all the time. The series is known for its classic episodes. It's also home to one of the most notorious and iconic animation quotes of all time.
Oh, say it again, Dexter. Omelette de fromage.
The point I'm making is that the series is home to dozens of great episodes. But like most great shows, it's hard to pick out exactly which episode is actually the best. So, after doing some research, conducting some experiments, and climbing some mountains, I think I finally arrived at an answer, and it may or may not surprise you. In today's video, I will be going over what I think is the greatest Dexter's Laboratory episode of all time, last but not least. So before we get started with the recap itself, it's important that I address a few things. First, I should probably note that if we exclude Ego Trip, this was the original intended ending for Dexter's Laboratory, hence why it's called Last But Not Least. As some of you may know, Dexter's Laboratory actually ended in 1998, or 1999 if you're including the movie. However, the series was brought back in 2001 for 2 more seasons and officially ended in 2003. Another thing to note is that this is actually the only episode of the series that's 22 minutes long. And it makes sense considering it was supposed to be the final episode of the show. And, had it not come back in 2001, I honestly think this could have been one of the very best Cartoon Network finales of all time. But I'll get into why later. For now, let's get into the actual episode. The episode begins with Dexter's dad getting ready and leaving for work. As Dexter's mom says goodbye to him, the school bus pulls up to their house. She hurries upstairs to Dexter's room so she can quickly get him out of the house. Except that's not actually Dexter. His name is Toshi, and he's a foreign exchange student. For whatever reason, Dexter's family decided to enroll him in a student exchange program, which means that while Toshi is here in the US, Dexter is actually in Japan. While in Japan, Dexter notices 2 boys playing with some action figures outside of his new school. He introduces himself and mentions that he likes to build action figures himself. But instead of taking out a toy, he actually takes out one of the old robot models that we've seen him use in episodes like Dexter Dodgeball. What Dexter doesn't know is that these 2 kids are smart as well, and they both take out robot-like suits of their own. Dexter is a bit shocked by this, but ultimately doesn't let it faze him, because at the end of the day, he's Dexter, and building giant robots is kind of his thing. He summons the Robo Dexo 3000, which was first used in the episode Big Sister when he needed to take down a giant-sized deity. However, before things could get too out of control, Dexter's new teacher comes out of the school with a giant robot of her own. She scolds the boys and tells them to put their toys away before they're late for class. Quick side note, this is the coolest school ever if this is something that happens on a regular basis. Like, seriously. After being scolded by the teacher, Dexter accidentally fires missiles from his robot and it begins to make its way to a volcano. Unfortunately, this causes a giant volcano monster to wake up from a really long, deep sleep. The 2 kids and the teacher fly away and don't even attempt to help Dexter, which I always found to be pretty funny. Dexter heads back to America to come up with a plan to take down the monster. Now, this is where the episode gets really interesting. Agent Honeydew, along with global security, fight off the monster but end up failing. Honeydew tells the commander that her squadron failed, which leads him to call in reinforcements. And who are those reinforcements? The Justice Friends. They get an alert from the commander and assemble. Let me tell you, when I first saw this episode, I was absolutely losing my mind. Especially since, if my memory serves me correctly, this is their first appearance in season 2, so it was really nice to see them back. This was like peak Cartoon Network for me. In a way, it was sort of like Avengers Endgame, except without a poorly written time travel plot. Seeing all of these characters unite in one episode was truly a treat. The Justice Friends end up getting defeated, which leads Agent Honeydew to summon our favorite crime-fighting monkey, who goes by the name of, well, you know. Meanwhile, Dexter arrives at his lab and catches Dee Dee playing around with the foreign exchange student. Dexter tells them what happened in Japan and decides that it's time to reveal his greatest invention. It's a giant robot that is so big it needs 4 people to pilot it. Dexter realizes that in order for that to happen, he's going to have to show his parents the one thing that he's been hiding from them the entire time: his lab. Dexter calls his parents into his room and he comes clean about everything. Dexter's parents, although reluctant at first, decide to help. However, they told him that when they're done helping him, they'll have a long talk about the lab. This is another thing that I really like about this episode. If you want to have a finale for this show with some sort of weight or value, there are a few things that need to happen, and Dexter revealing his lab to his parents is definitely one of them. It just makes the most sense. Meanwhile, Monkey enters the fight and begins to take on the monster, while Dexter and his family suit up and transform into Dexter's greatest invention. They launch out of the house and make their way to the battlefield. After arguing for a little bit, they get into formation and attack the monster, only to get knocked away easily. Toshi, back at the lab, is watching it all go down. He realizes that in order for all of this to work, they must truly come together as one instead of doing their own thing. Toshi gets out of his little bubble thing by using his superpowers, I guess? Toshi arrives at the battlefield and begins to lecture Dexter's family using some old story that's been passed down from generation to generation. They're moved by the story and agree to come together as a family and take on the monster. Dexter's dad throws an energy blast at him, Dee Dee does some ballet stuff to dodge the monster, Dexter's mom spanks it, and then Dexter pulls out 2 swords. He uses it to cut the monster open, but the coolest thing is that instead of just slicing down the middle like most people would do, Dexter carves it so it makes a D to represent his name, which in my opinion might just be one of the coolest television moments in American history. It's right up there with the Ben 10 and Generator Rex crossover and the Tony Hawk episode of Zeke and Luther. Dexter's arch nemesis Mandark, who is the only missing piece from the finale, shows up to blast the monster and take all the credit for its death. However, instead of hurting the monster, it actually gives it more power. The new and improved monster charges at Dexter and his family. They're able to hold him, but not for very long. Just then, Monkey wakes up and rejoins the fight. He goes inside the robot and gives it a supercharge. This time, using a series of moves, Dexter and his family are successfully able to take down the monster in the coolest way possible. The family walks out of the robot and talk about what just happened. Monkey flies down and joins the conversation, only for his mask to fall down, revealing to Dexter that his pet monkey is actually the superhero known as Monkey. This is a shock to pretty much everyone, but to make matters worse, Dexter's parents remember a secret lab that he's been hiding from them the whole time. Thinking quickly, Dexter pulls a memory eraser out and wipes his parents' memory of the past few hours. Monkey, realizing the opportunity he has, follows suit and wipes Dexter's mind clean. The episode ends with Monkey, Mandark, and Dee Dee being the only ones to remember the events that just took place, with the final shot being Dee Dee waving at the audience. And honestly, although it's not your traditional last scene for a finale, I feel like it was a perfect way to end the show. The entire episode actually was a great way to recap and celebrate the series. I'm a big finale person, so I always want to make sure that the TV show that I'm watching has a proper send-off. And this episode just about has everything that I look for in a final episode. Callbacks to earlier episodes? Check. Nearly every character in the show making some sort of appearance? Check. Concluding part of the story but still paving the way for potential adventures? Check. Think about it. If Dexter's parents actually remembered the lab, they probably wouldn't let Dexter keep it. And if they did, they would probably tell him not to do any dangerous experiments, which wouldn't make the show interesting. The writers of this episode cleverly gave us a taste of something that has been teased since the show's first episode, while still allowing new adventures with the memory wipe. Same applied for the whole monkey reveal. Dexter's Laboratory was never a serious show, so therefore doesn't need a serious finale. It wouldn't make sense for the show to end like, I don't know, As Told by Ginger or something, where it's revealed that the events of the series were actually just pages out of future Dexter's book. There's no need for that. Dexter's Lab can be summed up in 3 words. Simple, but epic. And what was this finale? Simple, but epic. It did everything a Dexter's Lab finale could possibly do. But, of course, none of this even matters because the show had a TV movie and 2 mediocre seasons after this, but hey, it'll always count as the finale in my heart. Also, real quick, I don't know if anyone has ever actually mentioned this before or not, but the Phineas and Ferb movie where they go to a different dimension is actually eerily similar to this episode. Like, let me show you some comparison clips.
I cannot believe that the world's greatest superhero has been living with me whole time in my secret laboratory.
You're a secret agent? And you've been living with us this whole time? Was that evil guy right? Were we just a cover story to you? I mean, were you ever really our pet or part of our family?
Dexter, we need to straighten a few things out with this secret laboratory business. Honey, you look great!
Where am I?
Major Monogram?
Yes?
So none of us will remember any of today?
That's right.
Good. Mwah!
Isabella!
Hit it, Carl!
Wait.
I'm not saying they stole it. I'm just saying. I don't know what I'm saying, honestly. But if you liked the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I will be posting a new video soon, so be on the lookout for that. And like and see you guys in the next one. I'm Mr. Nostalgia, and I'm out for now. Peace.
Stick around. The Mighty Bee is buzzing your way next, right here on Nicktoons.
Okay, it's been a hot minute since I genuinely discussed a cartoon on my channel, so I want to get back to my roots for a sec. The last time I talked about a cartoon, I reviewed the Dexter's Laboratory episode Last But Not Beast. The main reason why I did that was because it was originally meant to be the finale of the series, and I praised it for being an extremely epic conclusion. However, it got me thinking. Although it's always nice to see shows end on a high note, it's arguably even more important that shows begin on a high note. So I started thinking about my favorite cartoon pilots, and I came up with some pretty good ones. Help Wanted from SpongeBob is of course a classic, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends has a really good one, and I even really like the way My Life as a Teenage Robot started. But for me, there's one pilot in particular that I think is so good, yet went under most people's radars due to it being attached to a lesser known cartoon. And obviously, judging by the title and thumbnail of the video, you can tell that I am talking about the Mighty Beast pilot. But why? Why do I think it's so good? Some of you probably don't even remember the pilot. Well, hopefully by the end of this video you will understand what I'm talking about, because today we will be analyzing the first episode of the Mighty Bee titled So Happy Together. So sit back and relax, because you might have some fun with this one. So funny. The episode, which premiered on April 26, 2008, starts off with Bessie Higginbottom, voiced by comedian Amy Poehler, putting on her gear and getting dressed for the next morning. One of the things she does is draw a smiley face on her index finger. Why, you might ask? Well, her finger, appropriately named Finger, is actually a recurring character in the show. Bessie often talks to her finger for advice or just to air out her frustrations. Obviously, he doesn't ever respond back because, well, that would be weird, but sometimes it genuinely does help Bessie solve her problems, and we see that a lot throughout the show. Bessie does a few jumping jacks and proceeds to make her way out of the house, but not before tripping on the carpet. Or air? I'm not sure what she tripped on, honestly. She just kind of fell out of nowhere. Bessie leaves the house and passes by her mother's restaurant to say goodbye. Her brother, Ben, asks if he can come to her troop meeting, to which Bessie responds with, Ben throughout the show was hell-bent on getting into at least one troop meeting, so that's another thing that they introduced. Continuing her stroll, Bessie gets greeted by a bunch of people, showing that Bessie has a great relationship with everyone in her neighborhood, and that they all know her by name. She's not just some regular normal girl to them. All the adults know that there's something special about Bessie. Even the neighborhood hippie is tight with her. To me, that is how a protagonist should be introduced in a series. They don't go out of their way to show how people feel about Bessie, they just kind of show you, and it's very, very natural. Bessie then approaches the Chinese food restaurant that she uses as a shortcut. Mr. Wu, the owner of the shop, realizes that Bessie is there. Bessie gets real serious real quick and prepares to battle Mr. Wu. The customers of the restaurant then turn into ninjas to begin the battle. Turns out it was actually just Bessie's imagination the entire time, which makes a lot more sense. These little dream sequences were things that they would do frequently in the show, making it yet another thing that this episode introduced. Mr. Wu gives Bessie a dumpling, and she continues to make her way to the troop meeting. Bessie passes by her friend Rocky, voiced by Kenan Thompson.
Wanna hang out with
We then have yet another fantasy sequence where Bessie flies through the air as the mighty bee, but eventually she gets knocked back down to reality. Literally.
Nice flight, mighty bee.
We then meet 3 new characters, Portia, Penny, and Gwen. Portia and Gwen are, in a way, the series' main antagonists. They aren't really villains, but they definitely have a disliking towards Bessie. It's really a SpongeBob and Squidward type situation, or a Zeke/Luther and Kojo situation. I love how effortlessly I fit Zeke and Luther into all my videos. You guys gotta give me some sort of award for this. I'm really good at it. Penny, on the other hand, is the Patrick to Bessie's SpongeBob, despite the fact that she's often hanging around Portia and Gwen. And when I say she's basically a human version of Patrick, boy do I mean it.
I fed the Peter.
Portia's kind of like Sharpay from High School Musical, but with a really heavy Valley Girl accent, and Gwen is portrayed to be Portia's rough-mannered sidekick. Portia tells Bessie that the dog she's currently holding is going to be trained for the Honeybee Dog Show, where the winner gets the Animal Appreciation Badge.
But you don't have a dog anyway, Bessie. Guess you're not gonna get the badge this time.
One thing I really appreciate about this show is that occasionally it'll skip in between animation frames and just go straight from pose to pose. Now, admittedly, this wasn't the best example of this because only her eyes were moving, but when accompanied with the right sound effect, it creates a much bigger and sharper impact. In the next scene, we see that Bessie is bugging her mom about getting a dog so she can compete in the Honeybee Dog Show. And after giving her over 700 reasons why she thinks she should have one, Bessie's mom, whose name is Hillary, agrees to let her go out to rescue a dog. But the only thing is, she has to bring her brother Ben. While the two are on their way to rescue a dog, Bessie explains to Ben that in order to fully become the Mighty Bee, the character we see in her daydreams and fantasies, she has to collect over 4,000 more honeybee badges, which is why she desperately wants to adopt a dog so she can have it compete in the dog show. Just then, Ben points out that there's a stray dog not too far away from them. Bessie approaches him and helps him out by scratching his back, something that makes the dog very happy. She introduces herself but quickly notices that the dog has a torn ear, which to her makes him even cooler. She asks him if he wants to be her dog, and he quickly makes an escape only for Bessie to lasso the collar around his neck, basically forcing him to be domesticated.
Oh man, you're so happy, I'm gonna name you Happy.
There it is right there. See, she did it again. I love how they animate the characters in this show. In the next scene, Bessie is seen teaching Happy dog obedience. She does this by teaching the dog to stay even though Happy is tied up to a tree. Bro really can't go anywhere even if he wanted to. She then teaches him how to fetch, another activity he has no interest in. And the most important dog trick of them all, ballroom dancing. Ben is getting frustrated by Happy's lack of enthusiasm and calls him the worst dog ever. Bessie is quick to defend him and says that despite Ben's pessimism, Happy is the best dog ever and he will win the dog show. At the dog show, we get a quick look at Portia's mom, who is the Honeybee troop leader, paying the judge of the show to guarantee a win for her daughter. This doesn't surprise me at all. Bessie shows Happy to Portia and Gwen, only for them to make mean jokes about him, which causes Happy to run away. Bessie tracks him down and asks what's wrong. She then channels her inner Eliza Thornberry and communicates with Happy about his feelings on being in the dog show and really just being Bessie's dog in general. He explains that he wants his old life back, and Bessie understands.
Fly free. Sing out loud. Right if you can. Where are you going?
Bro, that dog said ZOOM! Man, I like this show. So this specific episode may not be the best example considering how she's been treating Happy, but overall I do like Bessie as a character. I think she's an example of an annoying character that doesn't actually annoy the audience, at least for me. She's a fun and charming character, and hopefully I'll get to expand more on that if I choose to review this series. Finger, who basically serves as Bessie's therapist, tells her that she's in the wrong and needs to let him go, and she agrees. Meanwhile, at the dog show, Portia and her dog are walking down the stage as Rocky and Ben boo her in disgust. We then go back to Happy walking back to the city as he gets flashbacks on all the love that Bessie showed him. He considers going back but ultimately rips up the thought bubble, which I gotta say is a really solid visual gag, and walks away. Back at the dog show, things are going pretty well for Portia, but Bessie still has to go up there with her dog, which is an issue for, obvious reasons. She gives a speech letting everyone know that her and Happy have mutually agreed to part ways, and while she's speaking, she hears a dog barking. She gets excited thinking it was Happy, but it was actually just some random dog. She runs off the stage crying, but just then, Happy runs to her and grabs her shirt. Or is it a dress? Whatever she's wearing. Bessie asks Happy if he wants to continue to do the dog show, and he happily agrees. That wasn't even a pun like that I did on purpose in the script. It just kind of happened. Then during a montage, we see Happy and Bessie showing off their skills to the judges and audience members. Let me tell you, man, this show is so fun. Not every episode is this good, but a lot of them do give off the same positive energy, and it just makes you feel good. This episode does a good job of setting up the tone for the rest of the series, and you'll see what I mean if I decide to review the rest of the show. Or, you could just watch it on Paramount Plus. That works too. The audience is obsessing over their performance and starts chanting their names. The judge gets nervous by this, and although he was already paid to give Portia's family the win, he calls it a tie, which makes the crowd angry. So then he decides to look at each dog's breeding and will determine the winner that way. He checks out Happy and calls him a typical beat-up mutt and says that Precious is the winner. Bessie steals the judge's microphone and says that she's okay with losing because at the end of the day, she loves Happy and Happy loves her. And that makes her happy.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
She also says to tip your waitresses. The crowd boos once again, and Portia's mom says that her dog is a real show dog, unlike Happy. To prove this, the judge... Well, you guys are just gonna have to see this one for yourselves.
See this gorgeous set of choppers? That's not a dog, that's a rat!
This is one of my favorite Nicktoons scenes, I'm gonna be real with you. It's absolutely hilarious and it never fails to make me laugh. Even today I find myself quoting, "That's not a dog, that's a rat," in random situations, and it always cracks me up. Anyway, Ben takes the badge away from the judge and gives it to Bessie.
Only 4,583 badges to go. Awesome! We're so close.
And yeah, that's how it ends. It kind of throws me off guard too sometimes, but that is legitimately the ending. And despite its abruptness, I like it. I like it a lot. It sets up the rest of the series really well, as does the whole episode. So, final thoughts on this episode? Well, believe it or not, this is one of my favorite cartoon pilots of all time. I love almost everything about it. I don't think I've ever seen a cartoon introduce a character as well as this episode's opening sequence. The only one I'd put above it is SpongeBob's iconic "I'm Ready" scene from Help Wanted. And this scene is just so beautifully animated too. The jovial atmosphere of it really puts you in a good mood. The first scene of Moon Girl actually gives off really similar energy. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but I'm really glad because this is how shows like this should be set up in my opinion. The only thing this pilot didn't really set up is the friendship between Penny and Bessie. You probably wouldn't even have known they were best friends from this episode unless you already knew ahead of time, but it also makes sense because she had to spend most of her time with Happy to set up that character dynamic, so it's not much of an issue for me. This episode does, however, set up Bessie's relationship with everyone else. She looks at Ben as her annoying little brother, and the two often squabble. That's a fun word. She seems to be pretty close with Rocky, who, fun fact, apparently was supposed to be voiced by Kevin Hart originally. That's pretty crazy. And obviously, we met Happy, who kind of gives off the same vibe as Snoopy, if Snoopy was raised in the ghetto and had to fend for himself. And what I love about the final scene is that it quite literally sets up every episode that comes after this. I mean, obviously some episodes aren't exactly about getting new badges, but a good portion of them are. Like I mentioned before, this is one of my all-time favorite pilots, and I'm willing to give this episode a 9 out of 10. It had the perfect tone, the right amount of heart, and plenty of funny jokes. They truly started this show on a high note, and it's a shame that the rest of the series wasn't quite able to keep up. Although I do think it's a good show still, don't get me wrong, just a tad inconsistent quality-wise. But I'll save the rest of my thoughts for a proper Mighty B review.
We don't know why they call this show Rugrats. We keep looking for carpet and furry rodents with long tails, but all they keep giving us is crazy little kids. Weird. Rugrats is next on Nicktoons Network.
A little while ago, while I was watching a marathon of Everybody Hates Chris, I began to think about Rugrats, as one who was watching an Everybody Hates Chris marathon does. Rugrats is a show I think about often, which makes sense because if you didn't know, Rugrats is one of my favorite cartoons of all time. Besides SpongeBob, it's the first Nicktoon that I really came to love, and I apologize to all of my friends and family who had to endure my constant talk about the show around the time I first discovered it. Seriously, I had a problem. Anyway, the show is iconic, and we all know it's one of Nickelodeon's most successful shows. And besides this Rugrats movie poster that I've had on my wall since the beginning of my YouTube channel, I haven't really touched on the franchise a lot, despite it being one of my absolute favorites. There was no way I was going to review the entire series in one video, since time nowadays won't allow me to, so I thought I'd review an episode. Originally, I was going to review Meet the Carmichaels, the episode that introduced Susie, and it's also just one of my favorite episodes of the series. But remember earlier when I said I was thinking about Rugrats while watching Everybody Hates Chris? Well, both shows are on Hulu, so I decided to pause the episode I was watching and head on over to watch a few episodes of Rugrats instead. The first episode I watched to begin my mini binge was the second episode of the series, called Barbecue Story. It's a classic episode with a simple plot, but as I was watching it, it occurred to me that this episode might just be the most important episode of the series. So I decided that that episode would be the episode I review and share why I believe that this episode of Rugrats is the most important episode of the series. So sit back, relax, and hold on to your diapers because I'm about to review an all-time great episode of an all-time great series, Rugrats. This episode of Rugrats premiered on August 18th, 1991. Wow, I think this is the oldest thing I've ever reviewed so far. It begins with Tommy about to eat a bug. Why? Well, because he's a baby. Right off the bat, something I never understood about Rugrats is how often the characters eat bugs. They make it seem like it's a common thing for babies to consume insects. As a kid, I never ate insects. That never once crossed my mind. Did any of you guys eat bugs as a baby? Let me know in the comments below because I have to be missing something. Anyway, Dee Dee stops it from eating the bug and proceeds to chuck my guy without any regard for insect life. Fortunately, he's okay though. He just landed on Grandpa Lou's nose. From there, he ends up on Drew before ending up on Spike. I guess Spike really doesn't care that there's a bug on him because as you can see, the only thing worth his time at the moment is getting a burger from off the grill. Speaking of the grill, Stu is seen behind it recording his friends and family at the barbecue. We then see Tommy, Phil, Lil, and Chucky chilling in their playpen. Lil mentions that she hates barbecues because there's nothing to do. That's what Tommy suggests. They play with his brand new ball, one that his grandpa gave to him. Tommy throws it to Chucky so he can catch it, which even if it wasn't rudely intercepted by Angelica, was going to turn out well anyway. Pretty sure Chucky doesn't have the best athletic skills. Angelica takes the ball and Tommy wants it back and demands Angelica gives it to him. Angelica, because she's Angelica, doesn't give it back to him and instead chucks it over the fence.
Don't worry, Tommy. It's just a dumb ball anyway.
Dee Dee comes over to check on Tommy, and as she's picking him up and down, Tommy notices his ball, which is right smack in the middle of the neighbor's backyard. That immediately makes him stop crying, and Dee Dee puts him down. Phil asks why he stopped crying, and that's when he tells everyone that his ball is right over the fence. See, let me tell you something. This scene right here is what makes this episode so important to the Rugrats franchise. It's the first episode where we really see how brave Tommy is. The first episode of the series was mainly about Tommy wanting to eat dog food. There's no real adventure there. This episode, however, is the first real classic Rugrats adventure we see them go on. Even if it's as simple as retrieving a ball from the neighbor's yard, it's still a prime example of a Rugrats adventure. And that's why I like this episode so much. Chucky tells Tommy that it's the next yard. There's no way he can actually go to the next yard because he's only a baby. Then, Tommy's basically like,
boy, if you don't get...
Nah, but jokes aside, what he actually says is super iconic because not only is it Tommy's most famous quote, but it's arguably one of the most iconic quotes in cartoon history.
A baby's gotta do what a baby's gotta do.
This quote is another reason why this episode is important. Like I said, it's huge in the Rugrats history, and it's really the first quote that people think of when they hear the name Rugrats. People can literally identify what show you're talking about just by saying this quote. The point is, the quote is iconic, and we wouldn't have gotten the quote if this episode didn't exist. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, and his diaper comes down too.
The Rugrats will be back faster than you can say Rugrats 5,000 times. Hey, you want to know what your TV set looks like covered in Rugrats? Check this out.
Anyway, Tommy breaks out of his little baby jail and Phil and Lil join him without a second thought. Chucky, on the other hand, has to think about it for a second, and of course, because he's Tommy's best friend, he comes with him. The gang makes it to the fence and begins to crawl to the other side. To cover more ground, Tommy tells his friends to split up. Chucky checks in a log for the ball and gets his head stuck, which results in Tommy and Phil pulling and tugging on Chucky to help him get out of the log, which ends up being successful. Chucky starts complaining to Tommy about how he led him here to this weird place that scares him, all for the ball to not be there. He even doubts that Tommy saw the ball in the first place. Right after Chucky gets his last words out, Tommy points toward the next yard over, where his ball actually is. Phil and Lil launch him over the fence, then launch Chucky over the fence, then fight over which one of them should go next. That leads to Tommy telling them to just stay where they are so he and Chucky can grab the ball. They spot it, but a problem emerges. The neighbor's dog is outside and begins to make his way over to Chucky and Tommy. Chucky tells Tommy that they should just leave, but Tommy is hell-bent on getting his ball. Fortunately, the dog is chained up and the chain is attached to his dog house. Unfortunately, the house is about to break. Tommy grabs his ball, Chucky dips, and right when Tommy is about to make it over the fence, the dog starts to charge at him. Fortunately for Tommy, he has the best pet in Nicktoon history on his side at all times. Spike hears Tommy scream, scares away the dog that was literally seconds away from eating Tommy like candy, and Tommy thanks him. We then see this epic shot of Tommy and Chucky riding on Spike's back as he takes them back to their yard. You see, people, this is what Rugrats is about. This is a prime example of a very good yet simple Rugrats adventure. Obviously, this one had to be simple because it was their first real outdoor adventure, but still. This shot of Tommy, Chucky, and Spike is really one of my favorite scenes throughout the entire show. What makes it even better is that this scene mainly focuses on Tommy and Chucky. Phil, Lil, and Angelica are nowhere to be found during this part of the episode. And look, don't get me wrong, I like all three of those characters, I really do. But one of the highlights of the Rugrats series for me was the friendship between Tommy and Chucky. And I believe that their friendship is what makes Rugrats such a good show. They have a very unique friendship. Despite Chucky being a year older than Tommy, he often looks at Tommy for help when he's in trouble, and not vice versa. He looks up to him, and Tommy is always there for him. Why? Because that's his dog. Well, no, I mean, I guess Spike is his dog, but Chucky's like, you know what I'm trying to say. Back to the episode, this idiot Stu looks in the garbage can for his baby when Dee Dee points out that Spike rescued Tommy and Chucky as well. Dee Dee picks up and holds Tommy, Stu praises Spike, burning his burgers in the process, and they all live happily ever after. Except for Dee Dee's parents. They gotta be dead by now, right? They should have been dead by the time All Grown Up came around, but you know what it is, so I won't fuss over it. The episode ends with Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, and Spike sitting on a hill watching fireworks. Tommy even grows a little bit character-wise. That same bug he was going to eat when the episode first started, well, he decided to take it off Spike and put it back on the ground, where he can vibe and hang out for a bit. Before probably getting stepped on 5 seconds later. Spike even gets what he wanted the entire episode, burgers. Tommy hugs Spike, and we see the main characters of the episode watching fireworks, chilling, and enjoying each other's company. And that, my friends, wraps up the most important Rugrats episode of all time, Barbecue Story. It was truly the perfect Rugrats episode. There may be better episodes, but this one right here nails the average Rugrats episode structure to a T, perfecting a plot that would be used time and time again. And it truly never gets old. To wrap this video up, let me start off by saying that yes, it is possible that I could be thinking way too hard about this. But hey man, I really like this episode, and I think it's an episode I show to anyone that wants to start watching this great show. Barbecue Story gets a 10 out of 10 from me, making it one of my favorite Rugrats episodes of all time.
Next, they're cute, they're loud, and they got it going on. The Proud Family's heading your way on Disney Channel.
The Proud Family. What?
I wanted to include at least one animated series in this video, and although I did have some interesting choices like the Ben Stiller episode from Phineas and Ferb, I wanted to use this video to talk about shows that I'll probably never get a chance to talk about again. And I mean, I think Proud Family is a good show, but it didn't really leave much of an impact on me as a kid. I just didn't watch it a lot. But it's too iconic of a series to just not talk about on my channel, so consider this the first and last time I talk about Proud Family. Now, Proud Family is a show that has a lot, and I mean a lot of great guest star episodes. But the episode I will be talking about today is the one that features Alicia Keys, Randy Jackson, not to be confused with Randy Jackson, and Tim Curry. What an elite guest star roster. Honestly, Proud Family's regular cast is so stacked to the brim with talent, you could argue that every episode is a guest star episode. It's insane. But yeah, the episode starts with Wizard Kelly introducing everyone to the Tween Idol auditions, which is basically the Proud Family's version of American Idol. Penny and her friends are watching a video explaining that the winner of the competition will win a bunch of different prizes such as a recording contract, a movie deal, and an opportunity to sing with Alicia Keys. La Cienega is very excited by this news because Alicia Keys is her idol. But then, Sugar Mama barges through the door and says that Alicia Keys has nothing on her and cuts the line so she can audition next. She's about to perform until Tim Curry's character, who is definitely supposed to be a reference to Simon Cowell, makes a joke about her age. She then assaults him with a cane in response, and we roll straight into the intro. 5 out of 5, by the way. There are not many Disney Channel intros as good as a Proud Family intro. But, I mean, that's what you get when you've got Destiny's Child and Solange doing the music. It's gonna come out fire. Back to the auditions, several members of the Proud Family friend group audition for the competition, but all of them get turned out by Tim Curry's character Percival. So, fun fact, I'm a really big fan of the show Psych. It's one of my favorite shows. There's one episode called American Duos that also features Tim Curry playing a fake Simon Cowell. Although, the Psych episode didn't come out until a few years later. I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny. La Cienega performs and all the judges, including Alicia Keys and Randy Jackson, are into it. So much so that they let her know that she has moved on to the next round.
Alicia, what does Randy gotta do to get a date with you? What does Randy gotta do to get a date with you? Woo!
He does this the entire episode, by the way, and it's hilarious. La Cienega tells the group the good news, and they're all pretty shocked by it. Later at school, it gets announced that La Cienega isn't the only one from that school moving on to the next round. Another girl named Agatha Ordinario managed to move on as well.
How do they pick Ugalicious? Please, when you have talent, you don't look like that.
Wow. That's messed up. She comes over to congratulate La Cienega, but La Cienega makes a few more crude remarks before leaving the lunch table so she could write her acceptance speech. Man, I don't even think Angelica from All Grown Up was this mean. Baby Angelica, on the other hand, totally was though. I mean, have y'all seen Rugrats in Paris? The next day, Agatha performs and does an amazing job, and is praised by both Randy Jackson and Alicia Keys. Percival, on the other hand, says that although she did a good job singing, at the end of the day, the show is called Tween Idol, meaning that she should be someone that a kid would want to look up to, and considering her looks, she does not fit the part, and that makes her tear up. But because of the fact that the crowd votes and not the judges, Agatha still gets to move on to the next round, along with La Cienega.
The Proud Family will be right back on Toon Disney. We are back with the Proud Family on Toon Disney.
During the next round, La Cienega puts on another good performance. Alicia, Percival, and Randy tell her that she did a great job, but Agatha's performance blows La Cienega's out the water, and everyone knows it, even Percival. But La Cienega still ends up winning anyway, which surprises everyone. Penny expresses her concerns to her friends, but they all kind of brush it off. Just then, a mysterious hand ushers Penny over to them. Turns out that mysterious hand ended up belonging to Brian Dunkelman, and he tells Penny that the contest was actually rigged and hands her a floppy disk with proof on it. Sticky works his magic and goes through the files on the disk, and it turns out that Agatha actually won by a wide margin. So they run to Wizard Kelly to present him the floppy disk containing the actual votes. He pulls out a contract claiming that people like him, aka producers, are allowed to change the outcome of polls if the outcome doesn't, and I quote, suit his fancy. He tells Penny that pretty sells and ugly repels, so he changed the outcome to La Cienega's favor because she'll end up being the more profitable market due to her being prettier than Agatha. He then deletes all the files on the disk and breaks it in half. Penny and Sticky's only other option is to visit La Cienega before she gets on stage, using a classic Muppet Man disguise. Or Orlando Blue, whichever one you prefer. Penny explains to her the situation, and La Cienega doesn't really believe her, but says even if she did, there would be no way she'd give up what's about to come to her. So before she goes on stage, Penny gives her one last piece of her mind.
But you know what, La Cienega? For all it's worth, I'm looking at you right now, and I've never seen anyone uglier.
The sound editors forgot to add sound effects when she walked away, and it really bothered me. So I just wanted to point it out. Someone hands Brian a note from Wizard Kelly saying that he knows that he's the one who gave the floppy disk to Penny. So someone, presumably who works for Mr. Kelly, sicks their dogs on Brian, and I'm just now finding out that Brian Dunkelman is a real person who worked on American Idol back in the day. So that's 4 guest stars, I guess. Alicia and La Cienega are about to perform together, but then La Cienega comes to her senses and says that she doesn't deserve to win this award because of the fact that it was rigged. Instead, it belongs to Agatha. So the two hug it out and start singing together, and they all live happily ever after. Especially since La Cienega and Agatha get to be in Alicia Keys' next music video. And yeah, that's how the episode ends. A really solid episode of the Proud Family, if I do say so myself. I feel like this is one of those Proud Family episodes that truly made the show special. Not many cartoons could do a plot like this, seriously. And I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Good stuff, man. Still not doing a video on it, though.
Coming up next, it's Batman, the Brave and the Bold on Cartoon Network.
Batman Brave and the Bold is a cartoon that many people today still like. Having a different tone than the other incarnations of the character, it was, I suppose for some, an easier show to watch compared to things like Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond. That being said, I was never the biggest fan of the show, despite watching almost every episode live, but I still have somewhat of a respect level for it. One of the things that I disliked about the show was that towards the end of its run, the show started to get, well, a little too weird, even for the show standards. And I gotta say, the weirdest episode to date has to be their final episode. So today, I've decided to release a quick little video that isn't really a recap or a review of the entire episode, but more of a showcase of the crazy things that this finale did. And trust me, there are a lot of things. So to give you a basic rundown of the plot, let's explain some things. Batmite, which is kind of like an alternate version of Batman that is, well, obsessed with the Bruce Wayne Batman, has grown tired of Brave and the Bold, deeming its formula to be dumb and repetitive. As a result, he uses his infinite amount of power to create a scheme to make the show so bad that the network will have to cancel the show to make way for a darker one. Only problem is that a character named Ambush Bug, with similar powers to Batmite, who, yes, is in fact from the comics, is also a fan of the show. Ambush Bug wants to make things right and restore Brave and the Bold to its glory days when the show is still normal. So now, while Batman and Aquaman attempt to stop Gorilla Grodd for like the umpteenth time in the show, Ambush Bug tries to get them both to remember who they are and hopes to put things back to normal. Now, what is actually interesting is that both Batmite and Ambush Bug have the ability to break the fourth wall, similar to Deadpool, or I guess just Jordan as well. They're aware that Batman is a fictional character. They're even aware about what the viewers were thinking when the show got announced, and as well as while the show is going. To give some examples of that, throughout the episode, Batmite does things he knows for a fact will get the fans mad, since he's trying to get the show canceled. One of the first things he does is that he gives Batman a wife, as well as a daughter. Batmite even makes a joke on how all the fanboys threw out their televisions at that current moment. Later on in the episode, Gorilla Grodd is attacking Gotham, and that's when something even I hate happens. Batmite uses his powers to force Batman into wearing clothes that usually companies tell the show to write in, only so they can make toys out of them and get money. The one Batman used was a neon-powered Super Street Bat Luge. Another thing Batmite does to ruin the show is he straight up replaces Aquaman's voice, changing it from the great John DiMaggio to Ted McGinley, who is from Married with Children. By now, people are starting to realize this show has really gone downhill. I mean, the scene here basically sums up my experience with watching this show with my dad. It's actually pretty scary how accurate that scene was. Like, I'm pretty sure I had that exact same exchange with my dad, word for word. Anyway, the universe begins to collapse, and Batmite begins to celebrate that the show is ending, and hopefully, a darker show will take its place. It's at that moment where Batmite realizes that things really have been changing. I mean, he's using guns, a Scrappy-Doo parody is for whatever reason fighting alongside him, and the buildings are slowly starting to disappear. Batman decides that it's only right to give the viewers one last good episode, and begins to turn the show back into what it was before. Decent. He and Aquaman take down Grodd, Aquaman gets his voice back, and everything begins to turn back to normal. the show was finally restored to its previous self. Unfortunately, the network decided the show isn't worth it anyway and proceeds to cancel it in favor of a darker show. Back at Batmite's house, a trailer for the new Batman show starts to play on Cartoon Network. Batmite begins to get excited, commenting on how they went full CGI this time, only to find out that it wasn't quite what he expected.
Oh, and here comes Batman!
And this time, he's a girl. Yes, it's the all-new Batgirl show.
I find this to be pretty funny actually, because Batman Brave and the Bold did end up getting canceled in favor for a darker Batman show that was also CG called Beware the Batman. It didn't last very long and is probably the most forgettable Batman show, but technically this finale was teasing the show all along, even though obviously that one wasn't based on Batgirl. Batmite seems to be okay with this so-called new Batman show, but that doesn't matter because Ambush Bug tells Batmite that since the show is ending and that he doesn't fit on the new darker show, he would cease to exist along with Brave and the Bold.
There's no room for a silly character like Batmite in a dark show like this. You didn't just end the Brave and the Bold. You ended yourself too. Adios, partner.
No! It can't end this way! It can't!
Huh. I guess it can. That's all, folks.
Back at the Batcave, Ambush Bug sets up a sort of going away party for the show and invites basically every single character that has ever been on it. And as crazy as the show had been at the time, seeing the show end with a scene like this is both fitting to the show's corny nature, but also kind of refreshing, which is what we'd have to assume is what the writers were going for.
And until we meet again, boys and girls, know that wherever evil lurks, in all its myriad forms, I'll be there with the hammers of justice to fight for decency and defend the innocent. Good night.
So yeah, that was the finale of Batman Brave and the Bold. This really was one of the wildest cartoon finales to date because of how open it was with the fourth wall breaking and the fact that they actually did it in a pretty cool way. And I actually really do like this episode. I'm not the biggest fan of the writers being aware that the show was starting to get stupid though. I mean, in my opinion, you can take that two ways. One, they genuinely tried for the first 2 seasons and by the third one, they just ran out of ideas and basically confessed. Or two, they were aware that the show was getting dumb and didn't really care, so they decided to let people know that they knew the show was stupid. On December 27th, 2005, a little show called Ben 10 premiered on Cartoon Network, an action/science fiction show featuring 10-year-old Benjamin Kirby Tennyson as he fights robot and alien wrongdoers with the help of a device called the Omnitrix, a watch from outer space that can turn Ben into 10 different aliens, at least to start out with. This franchise has taken many different forms and many different mediums. The original continuity, aka the story of Ben Prime as he's later referred to, spans across 4 different series and 4 different movies, canonically spread across 6 years of Ben's life. There were a few video games, a game show, and one sweet crossover with one of the best action cartoons of all time, Generator X. Then, years later, we received a reboot aimed towards younger viewers, like most franchises. Recently, it seems like the franchise has had a bit of a resurgence online, with people who never got the chance to witness it in its prime finally starting to check it out. So, I thought I would finally tap in and use this time to talk about it because I love this IP. When trying to figure out where to begin when talking about this show, I couldn't think of a better place to start, well, than to start. That's right, my name is Mr. Nostalgia, and today's video will be all about Ben 10's pilot, why I think it's unique, and why I think it is a masterclass in franchise setup. To me, the pilot of Ben 10 isn't just any old pilot. It is literally the launching point for the entire franchise, which if you really think about it, does not happen a lot. I mean, really, look at franchises like Scooby-Doo, Transformers, Ninja Turtles. All of them don't really have first episodes that you almost need to watch in order to understand the plots. With the franchise relying so heavily on this one episode to set up everything else, I'm going to spend my time breaking it down and examining everything that it teases for not only that show, but all of the other ones that come after it. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Oh yeah, by the way, this video contains light spoilers for the Ben 10 franchise, so just so you know. The episode starts off with a battle in space involving 2 ships, We're then introduced to Vilgax, who becomes not only the villain for season 1, but basically the villain for the entire show. His main goal is to hunt down the Omnitrix and says that no one will be able to stop him from getting it. And then literally, in the next shot, we meet the kid that stops him from getting the Omnitrix, aka Ben 10. We're then hit with the intro, which, I mean, come on, man. It's a banger. Who doesn't like this theme song, bruh? It's top tier. See, this was back when they gave cartoons actual, real theme songs, bruh. This joint is a minute long, although I do remember Cartoon Network and Boomerang shortening the theme song as time went on, which is a shame because it slaps so hard. Alien Force and Ultimate Alien ended up going with the instrumental route for their intros, which I guess fits with the show since they were trying to age the show up with the character, but neither of the intros were able to match the epicness of this one. They wouldn't go back to using lyrics in the intros until Omniverse, and although it's not my favorite intro, it's not bad. I definitely put it over Ultimate Alien. Back to the episode, school is done for the summer and everyone is dismissed. Ben heads outside and notices a kid getting bullied by Cash and JT, the neighborhood troublemakers. Ben steps in and demands that they leave him alone. He charges at them, but due to Ben's small size, the kids ended up hanging him and the kid being picked on from the tree. This scene is a good way to introduce Ben's character. Bravery and wanting to help people out was clearly already something in his DNA, even before he received the Omnitrix. The only thing preventing him from being successful at it, though, was his size. If only this dude had access to way big back then. This also is a good way to separate Ben from other kids who act similar to him. Ben might be a jerk and a bit selfish at times, but he's not someone that enjoys antagonizing people. Well, that is except for one person. Grandpa Max arrived in his RV, aka the Rust Bucket. Ben goes inside and sees his cousin Gwen Tennyson.
What is she doing here? Take it easy, dweeb. This wasn't my idea.
Gwen, just like Ben, is 10 years old, and although neither of them are big fans of each other, Ben specifically seems to have more of a disliking towards Gwen. And really, it's mostly summed up to Ben just being immature, though later also confirmed that the rivalry stems from the fact that they share the same birthday. So, in a weird way, they're like twin cousins. Wasn't there a 50 show about that? Although they spend a lot of the series bickering, it is shown that they do in fact care about each other. They're honestly more like siblings than cousins, and if anyone has ever had a sibling, you'd know that siblings fight, but it never really means much. While these two arguing with each other is one of the things that make the show, I am glad that the two become much nicer to each other starting from Alien Force and on. Gwen says that Grandpa Max convinced her mom that letting her go on a camping trip with him and Ben would be a good experience for her.
Geek. Jerk.
Something tells me it's gonna be a long summer.
Huh. Grandpa Max was right considering the summer lasted like 4 seasons. They arrive to the campsite and Grandpa hands them their food. Marinated mealworms. Yeah, so one of the ongoing jokes in the franchise is that Grandpa has the weirdest taste in food, and for the first few episodes it's played off as just Grandpa being Grandpa, but considering what we later find out about him as the show goes on, there's definitely a bit more to it. Meanwhile in space, we go back to seeing the battle from earlier. What's funny about this battle is that we don't even find out who was in the other ship until like season 3, I think. So to me, I think it's impressive just how much of the show they thought out before pitching it to the network. A Vilgax sends a laser at the other ship, causing it to explode. This also causes a tube of some sort to come out of it, and in that tube is a ball-type device. Even though Grandpa Max tries to get Ben and Gwen to communicate with each other since it'll be a long summer, Ben decides to take a walk to have some time to himself. As he makes his way through the forest, this happens. Ben walks up to the shooting star that almost obliterated him to check it out. After some rocks crumble beneath him, he falls down into the newly created hole in the ground and walks closer to the shooting star, which is actually the same ball from earlier. The ball opens up, exposing the Omnitrix, aka the most powerful weapon in all of fiction, basically. This device's origins are unknown for most of the series, which is why having the Secret of the Omnitrix movie towards the end of the show was such a great idea. As Ben questions why there was a watch in outer space, he reaches towards it, causing it to jump right onto Ben. Ben is taken back by this and immediately wants the watch removed, as most people would in this situation. But after playing around with it for a bit, he accidentally presses a button, revealing a mysterious humanoid icon on the screen. Then, he does what any comic book or manga reading kid would do, and presses it down.
never gonna get this thing to work.
This transformation sequence is the first of many that we receive down the line. This series specifically, to me, has the best transformations. They are extremely well animated and sometimes can even look a bit painful. Later Alien Force and Ultimate Alien will go for less detailed and stylish transitions that, although can be cool at times, they don't really hold a candle to the original ones. It honestly felt like less thought was put into them. Omniverse, on the other hand, went for the more natural approach, having Ben sometimes instantly morph into an alien, which was kinda unique. However, they did occasionally have full-blown transformation sequences, and when they did that, they were usually really cool. This alien's name is Heat Blast, and he's voiced by the legendary actor Steve Bloom, who's known for doing voices like Wolverine and Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. Love this dude. Fantastic voice actor, lots of range. As Heat Blast, Ben starts freaking out, realizing that he is on fire. But eventually he realizes that although he is on fire, it's not actually affecting him. So, being a kid of course, he starts testing out his new powers by launching his fireballs. It's actually insane how this one scene set up the entire franchise. And what makes this scene even cooler is the fact that much later it gets revealed that Ben and another character named Professor Paradox were actually there during this part and directly were responsible for the Omnitrix reaching Ben. It's almost like an ongoing loop or something. Seeing this scene from 16-year-old Ben's perspective was so cool. After playing around too much, Ben accidentally creates a forest fire, which leads to Max and Gwen running in there to find them. It probably wasn't great parenting to let Gwen go into a whole forest fire, but sure, let's have it happen anyway. Gwen comes across Ben as Heat Blast and immediately gets freaked out.
Look, I know I look weird, but there's no reason to be scared.
Oh, she got up there, bruh. Heat Blast starts goofing off with Gwen, which makes her realize that it's actually her cousin in there. Ben explains to her exactly what happened, and Max comes in a little later, almost equally as shocked as Gwen. Using his quick thinking, Max suggests that in order to put out the forest fire, he should create a backfire, which involves creating a new fire so it takes out the old one. Heat Blast listens to Max and it successfully works. The fire has been put out, much to the confusion of the forest officer. Later, they go back to their campsite to discuss what just happened.
Think he's gonna stay a monster forever?
He's not a monster. He's an alien. I mean, look at him.
Yeah, totally a normal reaction by someone that has no idea what's going on. Ben's Omnitrix times out, and he ends up turning back into normal Ben. Max says he's going to check out the crash site to see if he can find any clues, and instructs Ben and Gwen to stay there, and to not mess with the watch. So naturally, Ben messes with the watch. He says that if he can just figure out how it works, he could potentially use it to help people. Gwen advises that he doesn't go alien again, but he's Ben. So, you know what happens next. Ben turns into yet another alien, this time being Wild Mud. Voiced by, well, he doesn't really have a voice. Not yet, at least.
Wild Mud.
What's unique about Wild Mud, besides not having a voice, is that he also doesn't have any eyes, so he's technically blind. But similar to Marvel Comics' Daredevil, Wild Mud uses his other senses to guide him where he needs to go. So when Gwen attempts to swat him, he's able to dodge it. Then he goes off to explore the forest.
I'm gonna tell Grandpa that you turned into some freaky animal monster thing and went swinging around the forest when he told you not to.
Shut up, Gwen. You're trying to be Candace from Phineas and Ferb so bad. You got the red hair, annoying voice, and everything. Wild Mud continues to explore the forest until he spots a robot drone attempting to kill him. This drone is actually something we see earlier in the episode, and it was sent by Vilgax to hunt down the Omnitrix. Since Ben is the one wielding it currently, it's after him. But fortunately, Wild Mud is extremely agile and strong, so when he hops onto the robot, he's easily able to tear it to bits. But unfortunately, while he's on top of it, the Omnitrix times out, causing Ben to turn back to normal.
Not good.
When we return from a commercial break, we see Gwen is able to whack the remains of the robot with a shovel. See? They do care about each other. Max chastises Ben for using the watch even though he told him not to. Ben apologizes but says that he did at least figure out how it worked. Gwen points out though that he still hasn't mastered the whole staying as an alien and not going back into Ben part. So Max says that since the watch will be attached to him for the time being, and it seems to be attracting unwanted attention, he and Gwen should teach him how it works, which excites Ben very much. Just then, you overhear on the radio that has apparently been on this entire time that some sort of robot is attacking people somewhere nearby. Ben puts it together that the robot has to be related to the robot that attacked him, meaning they've got to be after the watch. Feeling responsible for this, Ben decides that he should go over there to stop them.
You? What are you gonna do about it, Tennyson?
Has she not been watching the show? Or... The Grandpa Max drives them over to the scene of the crime, and Ben messes around with the Omnitrix, eventually choosing an alien. Diamond Head, the absolute GOAT, man. One of the best Ben 10 aliens of all time, in my opinion. Diamond Head is that cool dude in school that everyone is friends with just because of how well liked he is. How could you not like him? Diamond Head is voiced by Jim Ward, who also provides the voice of another alien that we see later, but we'll get there when we get there. Ben, Gwen, and Max all rush over to help out. While Ben takes on the robot, Gwen and Max help the humans get to safety. At first, things will go well with Ben and the robot, but once Ben realizes the capabilities of Diamond Head, everything starts to go much more smoothly. He uses his reflectiveness, or whatever, I never really paid attention in school, to blast the robot's beam directly back at it.
Let's see how you like it, you techno freak.
Way to go, diamond-headed guy?
And that's how Diamond Head got his name. Fun fact, I remember having an argument with a kid in my school years ago about what this character's name was. He thought it was Diamondback because of the things on his back, but I knew it was Diamond Head because I actually watched the show religiously. Situations like this is probably what led to the writers having Ben shout the name of his aliens in Alien Force and Ultimate Alien.
Diamond Head!
After Diamond Head celebrates his victory and runs away, we pan up to a shot of the spaceship that we saw earlier in the episode. After the battle from earlier, Vilgax is all torn up and disheveled. Vilgax, who's practically on life support right now, is enraged by the robot's failed effort to capture the Omnitrix, and says that he will in fact get that device back. And it's never not fun watching these guys go at it. Back at the campsite, Max questions where Ben is. But just then, we hear a sonic boom far away. Followed by the boom is a new super fast alien called Accelerate. Like, literally, XLR8. Such a creative name. It's so creative, they copied that same formula later with an alien called NRG.
Energy is G-O-O-D.
Not nearly as cool though. Accelerate just got done taking care of some business that needed to be attended to. And in the final scene of the episode, we see that Cash and JT were hung on trees by their underwear, by none other than Ben as Accelerate. And that concludes the first episode of Ben 10, an episode that went on to launch an entire franchise.
My turn. My turn. My turn.
When it comes to setting up a TV show's plot, I'm not sure there are many episodes that do it better than this one. I mean, where do I start? For one thing, it does a good job at setting up the main character dynamic. Ben simply wants to have all fun all the time, even if it's at the expense of others occasionally. Gwen, on the other hand, although obviously enjoys a good time as well, lives her life a bit more structured and strict. She's smart, thinks things through, and plays by the rules, which is basically the exact opposite of Ben, so yeah, it makes sense why they bicker all the time. Meanwhile, Max is a wise and sometimes weird guardian for both of them that seems to know a lot more than is leading on. Despite this, he obviously cares a lot for both kids, and as the franchise goes on, we see just how much he's left an impact on them. This episode also sets up the main battle of the series, Vilgax fighting Ben in an attempt to try to get the Omnitrix, a device that holds an insane amount of power. Little is known about the device so far, or why Vilgax, whoever he is, even wants it to begin with. But I think this episode does a great job at setting those stories up. It does take a while to truly learn the purpose of the Omnitrix and why it was made, but considering we get an entire movie about it, yeah, I say it's worth the wait if you ask me. I think it's cool to have us, the viewers, as clueless as Ben, so by the time he finds out about something, We all find out at the same time, and to me, that makes it hit harder. Nothing is worse than finding out who the main villain of a show is before the main character does, so we have to put up with a bunch of episodes of, when is he gonna find out? When is he gonna find out? Ben's clueless, I'm clueless, we're all clueless. Let's enjoy this ride together, yeah? The foundations of several stories that get fleshed out throughout the series all get planted in this episode, and while some stories take more time to unravel than others, all of them get their proper time to shine. That makes this episode of Ben 10 an essential viewing if you want to enjoy anything after it to its full capacity. You could not say the same for other franchises. A lot was on the line if you didn't get this episode right, but fortunately for the writers, they did, and we got something truly epic out of it. I mean, think about it. If it wasn't for the specific scene of Ben getting the Omnitrix, we wouldn't have seen the birth of such an epic franchise. A franchise that dives into different mediums, a franchise with a lore that goes deeper than most, a franchise with one of the best and most non-toxic fan bases out there. And I mean, look at Ben. He's just a bratty kid in this episode. Who would have thought he turned into such a powerful character? A character that uses his abilities to save the universe, save the multiverse, recreate the universe, team up with his past self several times, team up with his future self several times, hold an entire birth of a universe in his hands, cross over to different shows, and even cross over with his own shows. I mean, come on, man. I guess it's true what they say. There are so many ways to tell a story, but that's what makes them so interesting. You can never predict how they're going to turn out. But we do know that this story started when an alien device did what it did.
I don't even know them. I just thought that sounded cool.
Nah, but for real though, this franchise is great. I love it, a lot of other people love it out there, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone. But if you do start it, make sure you start it from this fire episode right here. Enough yapping from me though, because I could truly go on for hours about this series. I want to know your thoughts on this episode, and really Ben 10 as a whole. Let me know in the comments below. As always, I'm Mr. Nostalgia, and I'm out for now. Peace.
Friday. Let's do this thing! Got an all-new fish hooks. A battle of the band. Milo and the gang band together. Ow. For a showdown on the playground. Let's jam. Plus, an all-new Take Two with Phineas and Ferb welcomes food dude Guy Ferrarier. Fieri. Don't miss Disney Channel Friday night. Friday starting at 8/7 Central on Disney Channel.
TV is just so good these days.
Rightfully so, Phineas and Ferb has been a pretty hot topic recently. A lot of this can be attributed to the fact that the show has recently returned for a 5th season, which can be found on Disney+. This recent revival has led to a lot of people reminiscing on the show, sharing their favorite memories, episodes, and even songs. By the way, my favorite to this day is I'm LaDonna and I Want to Have Fun. Absolute banger, if I do say so myself. This constant Phineas and Ferb discourse has me reminiscing on my personal connections with the series, which consists of many things, like remembering where I was when Summer Belongs to You premiered, purchasing Finadroids and Furbots on the iTunes store using my dad's account, and a bunch of other stuff. One thing that I also remember very well, but never see anyone talk about though, is the short-lived Phineas and Ferb talk show where they'd interview real celebrities that used to air on Disney Channel in between commercial breaks. Like, I literally haven't seen anyone bring this up before. It can't be that obscure, after all, it is on Disney+. Well, I figured since no one else wants to for whatever reason, I'd be the one to finally break this topic open. So join me, Mr. Nostalgia, as I talk about the Phineas and Ferb spin-off series that time apparently has forgotten, Take Two with Phineas and Ferb.
Mom! Phineas and Ferb are making a talk show.
Take Two with Phineas and Ferb premiered on Disney Channel in December 2010. Here's a little fun fact to kick this portion of the video off. In the same article made by Variety revealing that the spinoff was indeed happening, a bunch of other shows for the channel were announced as well. Matter of fact, this article was originally intended to talk mainly about Tron Uprising. Also touched on were the announcements of Motor City, Ultimate Spider-Man, Kickin' It, which was originally titled Wasabi Warriors, and I'll give you 10 seconds to guess what the last show was. I'll give you a hint. It's a sitcom with music in it. Time's up. It was Ant Farm. Though in retrospect, a sitcom with music in it probably isn't the best thing to say when trying to narrow that one down. Disney got like 50 of those. Whoopsie. Creator Dan Povenmire revealed that the spinoff came about thanks to Disney asking the show's producers to make something that married Phineas and Ferb with live-action stars. Even if it wasn't done on purpose, which I kind of doubt, Take Two with Phineas and Ferb is very reminiscent of Cartoon Network / Adult Swim's Space Ghost Coast to Coast series from the 90s, which is an absolute banger, by the way. Highly recommend both that and The Brak Show, actually. Both shows are hosted by 2D animated characters in a 2D animated environment that interview different guests in every episode. I guess where this show differs, though, is the fact that given Space Ghost was a 90s show, they didn't have the means necessary to have the actual celebrity being interviewed sitting down in the same environment as the characters and interacting with them and whatnot, which totally makes sense. Instead, they'd just be on a TV screen, so the actual gags and hijinks they could do, although still funny, were pretty limited. This show has more of a traditional talk show setup, though, having the guests sit down in the same room as Phineas and all the other characters we see from time to time. Additionally, and I guess this was more of a stylistic choice, Space Ghost for the most part just reused footage from the original 60s series, whereas the animation in Take Two, although pretty and understandably limited, is all original. Like I said earlier, each episode had a new guest in it, ranging from musicians to actors to Miss Piggy. Most of these choices made sense as a lot of the guests weren't things that kids likely would have seen. Ben Stiller, Jack Black, Neil Patrick Harris, even Jason Segel ended up in a couple kids movies like Gulliver's Travels and The Muppets. I think out of all the guests that were on this show, Regis Philbin and Ty Pennington are probably the most random. Not that it's impossible for kids to have seen Who Wants to Be a Billionaire or Extreme Makeover Home Edition, but they definitely wouldn't have been my first choices for this show aimed towards 6 to 12-year-olds. At some point, I just think the crew used this show as an excuse to meet some of their favorite celebrities. And you know what? I can't say I blame them, because I'd probably do the same thing. If you ever see Lou Dort on a kid's show years from now, there's a really decent chance that it's because I created said show. Another similarity this show has with Space Ghost is that, well, you're not supposed to take this seriously, like, at all. They rarely ever ask real questions regarding the interviewee's career, and instead just goof off most of the time, which is where a lot of the charm comes from, actually. Oftentimes, this leads to moments that are so oddly specific that you can't really get them anywhere else, which, to the show's credit, is pretty in line with Phineas and Ferb's humor in general. Seeing Dr. Doofenshmirtz interact with Seth Rogen wasn't something I thought I needed to see until now. Sometimes they would take actual facts about the celebrity being interviewed, but put their own little Phineas and Ferb quirk to the question. But oftentimes, they just have them do a bunch of random stuff.
If you don't mind, though, I'm going to try and do it in a new style. I've been trying to sound more like the way they rap on the radio. Is that okay?
No, it's not okay. I don't think you can do that on a TVY7 show.
Phineas and Ferb. Ain't no now. Ain't no fair.
All I was thinking during this clip was how much this dude looks like Buddy from Victorious, not gonna lie. I think they even made a joke about that in the show, actually. The rap thing made sense for Andy Samberg considering the stuff he did on SNL. But a lot of the time, you'd be pretty surprised with what they have some of these people doing. Most of it isn't tied to what they do in real life. For instance, I'm pretty sure Larry King has never done this before. We would also get these pretty cool segments of the guests interacting with Phineas and Ferb. Sometimes it's pretty limited, while oftentimes, like with Tony Hawk and Tom Bergeron, they spend most of the episode doing stuff together. The Tom Bergeron episode is probably one of my favorites, just because growing up he was always one of my favorite people thanks to him hosting AFV. That show used to go platinum in my house. It's honestly low-key impressive how much random stuff they're able to come up with for these interviews. When an episode starts, you never really know where exactly it's going to end up. Despite the runtimes being only about 2.5 minutes, occasionally these shorts felt longer thanks to how much was jammed into them. Characters from the original show would be brought in to play roles within the miniseries. Phineas, rightfully so, is the lead host of the show, with Ferb serving as the sidekick, or the Andy Richter. Isabella is in nearly every episode as the stage manager. Sometimes she'd be there just to introduce the guests, but at times she'll have slightly larger roles. Candace, on the other hand, doesn't appear very much, only appearing in 4. Though I will say the one appearance that does really stand out is the Taylor Swift episode, because in this universe, at least, Candace is a really big fan of her music. And yeah, that just makes sense. What do y'all think Candace's favorite album is, though? If I had to guess, I'd probably say Reputation. I don't know why, I just kind of get that vibe from her. What, are you surprised that I'm familiar with their work? You don't think I enjoy Taylor Swift's music from time to time? Come on, man. I'm 6'1", by the way. Mentioned this earlier, but Doofenshmirtz also appears from time to time, like Candace, appearing in 4 episodes, most notably interacting with Seth Rogen and Neil Patrick Harris. Even Buford makes a few appearances, his most memorable one coming from when David Beckham kills him.
So take your best shot, Beckham.
Oh, this ought to be good.
Baljeet surprisingly doesn't really have many appearances on this show at all, only appearing in one for literally a couple seconds, and he doesn't even have a voice line, which is crazy. I feel like there definitely could have been something done with him in this show, but I guess maybe the voice actor wasn't available. And yes, before anyone asks, we do in fact get a cameo from Perry. Now, the way this show aired in terms of when and where is pretty interesting, and you wouldn't expect this much lore to be attached to something with only 20 episodes, and not a single one being over 3 minutes. But here we are. So the show premiered on December 3rd, 2010, and ended about 11 months later. For the most part, they were pretty consistent in airing 2 episodes each month during that span, with a brief 2-month hiatus after episode 10. These are the only episodes available on Disney Plus at the moment, which is why whenever I show footage of those episodes, it's in significantly better quality than the other ones, which I just found lying around on YouTube, some being officially uploaded by Disney. But like, here's the crazy thing, there are a bunch of other episodes of this show that aired in other parts of the world, where stars relative to that country are being interviewed by the boys. These are episodes that obviously never aired in America, so I was pretty shocked to find this out. The only ones that retained the same voice actors were the ones aired in Australia, since they're obviously still speaking English. I'm curious though, to see if anyone in the comments has any stories or memories about these episodes airing in any of these other places. Take Two with Phineas and Ferb aired its last episode on November 25th, 2011, with Guy Fieri being the show's final guest. And what an epic final guest he was. Now here's the interesting thing. I made a joke tweet to Vincent Martella, who, fun fact, I've met before, cool dude. And in that tweet, I made a joke about a potential season 2 of this series, now that the main show is back. Later on though, during my research for this video, I found out that a season 2 is kind of happening, though it's really more of a reboot. In April of this year, it was announced that Cartoonified with Phineas and Ferb is officially in development, a miniseries described as a fresh twist as the dynamic duo interviews real-life celebrities reimagined and drawn in the iconic animation style of the series. The episodes will roll out this summer on Disney Channel, Disney Plus, and other Disney-owned YouTube channels. I was not expecting the format of Take-Two to come back in any way, shape, or form. I just thought it would be a fun idea, especially since content made specifically for YouTube and Disney Plus is a lot more common now. For no particular reason, I'd like to see Pink Panthers on it. That's just me though. Overall, I think content like Take Two with Phineas and Ferb is a fun way to not only constantly make the presence of the original show known, but also expand it into more of a franchise, which Phineas and Ferb certainly is now. It obviously can't be graded like an actual animated series, given its runtime and lack of substance, but for what it is, I think it's pretty good. I mean, the amount of guest stars they had on that show is pretty nuts. I'm talking genuine A-list celebrities for something that wasn't even the main series. That's crazy. Last year, when I made my other Disney Channel guest stars video, I reviewed an episode of The Proud Family, and so I figured I would continue this tradition of covering a Disney cartoon in these kind of videos in this one by talking about Phineas and Ferb, one of Disney's all-time great cartoons. Now, when I was trying to figure out which Phineas and Ferb episode to talk about, I admittedly had a hard time. The show has had a lot of guest stars: Seth MacFarlane, Kevin Smith, Tina Fey, Wayne Brady. I could just keep on going. The issue though is that some of these guest stars had a pretty minimal role, so it was hard for me to justify talking about the entire episode. I wanted to talk about the episode Dude, Let's Get the Band Back Together, and I even wrote notes for that one, but Steve Zahn's role in it was so small, I just couldn't do it. So then I remembered the episode featuring movie star and avid Knicks fan Ben Stiller, so I was like, hey, why not, you know? The season 2 episode of The Beak aired on March 8th, 2010. It starts off with Phineas and Ferb finishing their latest and greatest creation called The Phineas and Ferb Edge of Insanity, Kiss Your Butt Goodbye, Gravity's the Stone Cold Sucker Nightmare, acting like sour milk all on the floor, while eating shut the refrigerator, maybe that's the reason I've been acting so cold. Kidding, that's not what it was called. Shout out Gwen Stefani though. When Ferb hands Phineas his skateboard to try it out though, he accidentally drops it, which sends it down the track. And as the boys watch it go down, they realize that maybe their idea wasn't the safest one out there. Where did they get a leopard from? After the board blows up, they realize they need to make some revisions to the ramp. But an idea occurs to Phineas that instead of making alterations to the ramp, they should make alterations to themselves so they can go down it unscathed. After cooking up a suit that has a surprising amount of Bulgarian folk-related elements, the duo puts it on.
Okay, video link active.
That kind of reminds me of the old Iron Man cartoon that turned into 3D animation for some reason whenever he'd suit up. Y'all remember that? That was so weird. Anyway, the boys go down the ramp, this time with their new super suit, and things go in their favor. But right as they reach the end of it, they hear a call for help from their friend Buford, who is seemingly in distress. Turns out Baljeet is stuck in a tree, and Buford needs him to come down so he can work on his math homework. Just then, Phineas and Ferb grab him as he falls, so he doesn't go splat onto the pavement. That'd be nuts. Can you imagine if they ended the show like that? Like Baljeet just dies, and then you cut to commercial and it's the Bella Thorne dyslexia ad? That would be crazy. I don't know why I wrote that, man. It's 2:40 a.m. right now. My brain is cooked. The boys manage to stop themselves and come to a relatively decent landing, which involved the contraption that they built getting destroyed. Thanks to Isabella, who for this episode will be taking the role of Lois Lane, word starts to get passed around that there's a new superhero in town. That hero being Phineas and Ferb in their new suit, but have been given the name The Beak. Unfortunately, the news has gotten out to everyone, including a man named Cockapoo, who was played by Ben Stiller, of course. Now, this isn't the only Ben Stiller and Phineas and Ferb crossover, surprisingly. They used to have this talk show called Take Two with Phineas and Ferb, where the duo would interview celebrities, and one of the celebs they interviewed was actually Ben Stiller. Tom Bergeron was also on the episode for some reason. Anyway, back to the episode. Cockapoo is a miserable lowlife who doesn't want people to have fun. So when he hears about the Beak, he decides that it's up to him to ruin their coming out party. So while the Beak is flying around, Poo hits them with his arm, making the Beak crash into a building. That leads to an all-out brawl between the two, or I guess technically three. The Beak is able to neutralize Cockapoo, but he swears that this won't be the last time they'll see him. Just then, Isabella asks the Beak for an interview, but they end up flying away since they can't get too close to her, as that might lead to her discovering their secret.
We can't tell Isabella we're the Beak now. That would put her in danger. The life of a superhero is a lonely one, Ferb. Even after only 11 minutes.
What will become of our heroes now? Find out in the next exciting episode of The Beak!
Disney Channel Summer is Phineas and Ferb. They'll be right back. Phineas and Ferb is back on Disney Channel Summer.
When we return from a commercial break, Candace talks to her friend Stacy about how she believes that Phineas and Ferb are the Beak, since generally they're responsible for all the weird stuff that happens in that town. So she decides that since she's the official Phineas and Ferb buster, that she will bust the boys as their arch nemesis, the Danger-Raff. Cool name, cool name. Reminds me of something you see from like a 60s Teen Titans comic. Isabella confronts the boys about their whereabouts recently, since from her perspective, it seems like they've been missing a lot. She informs them about the Beak, but the two do that thing commonly found in superhero media where, in order to keep their secret identity hidden, the superhero's alter ego scoffs at the idea of the superhero. This leads Isabella to walk away. Rather sad, might I add. Ain't no time for that silliness though. Phineas and Ferb got a city to save.
Ready, Ferb? Let's wing it.
No, wait, that's a bar. Get it? Because, like, the Beak is a bird-themed superhero. Nah, but seriously, though, that's a really clever way to enter their HQ. The Beak flies off once again to save the city from the villainous antics of Cockapoo during a montage scene. But interrupting this is Candace, dressed as the Danger-Raff, and Stacy, who's dressed as the Dangerable. Candace is trying to make Phineas and Ferb out themselves as the Beak by attempting to steal their mother's purse, but by the time the two arrive, it's obvious that nothing bad has truly happened, and it's just Candace being Candace.
Admit it, you two are superheroes.
Well, Ferb has been working out. Thanks for noticing.
Tell her the truth. You're making me look ridiculous.
Way too easy.
The mom of the show has such good one-liners, bro. They wrote her perfectly. Tipped off over what happened earlier, Candace storms off back home. Along the way, though, she runs into Cockapoo, who tries to recruit Candace into teaming up with him to take down the Beak. Candace isn't aware that this is real life, and not some game that Phineas and Ferb are playing with their friends. And although you know what? I'm just gonna call this man Ben Stiller for the rest of the episode. And although Ben Stiller is a pretty crummy bad guy, he still is a real bad guy, which isn't registering with Candace. So that's why she teams up with him, because ultimately she just wants to bust her brothers. Phineas and Ferb try to head back to the nest, but are interrupted by Isabella, who is also interrupted by Ben Stiller. This dude just starts spraying people with water. And although Isabella wants the two to stay with her to help her report on the situation, since like I said, she's Lois Lane today, they can't. They gotta once again lock in and become the Beak to put an end to Ben Stiller once and for all. Meanwhile, in the B plot,
could you come in here?
That would be a bowl of mints.
I've got my finger in a bowl of mints?
Yes, you do.
Oh, well, that would explain why there's so many buttons.
Back to the A-plot, the Beak arrives in downtown Danville to stop Stiller from wreaking havoc. This is when he unveils his new partner, the Danger-Giraffe. At first, the Beak doesn't want to attack because Candace is in the vehicle, but once she leaves after getting offended by a remark Stiller made, he charges full force at him. They engage in a kinda epic battle. At one point, Isabella Lane falls off a building because you're not a superhero love interest unless you're falling off of stuff. And the Beak has an interesting conundrum on their hands. Do they save Isabella or save the people that are about to get crushed by a building? This is a very Spider-Man 1 type scenario here. Isabella slips, but Phineas is able to grab her right before she falls. And if you're wondering how he's able to do that and what happened to the Beak, Ferb always be coming in clutch, bruh. He's like the Damian Lillard of Phineas and Ferb characters. Isabella thanks Phineas for saving her, and then Phineas jumps off the building in order to get back into his Beak suit. The Beak tells Isabella that Phineas is safe and landed on a ledge. Then they fly right to Ben Stiller and battle him for a little bit. But Phineas realizes that all this guy wants is to ruin everyone's best day ever, simply because of the fact that he never had one. So Phineas and Ferb decide to come clean as the Beak in order to end this feud. If there's no superhero, then there's no supervillain, which is something that Stiller himself even brings out. Phineas tries to help him have the best day ever by inviting him over to assist in rebuilding their skate track from earlier. And at first, Stiller actually does consider it. It's not until he realizes how hot it is when he decides against it. But then, his wife from earlier in the episode, who was actually voiced by Ben Stiller's real wife, Christine Taylor, angrily demands that he takes her shopping to buy more throwing chairs. And we never see him again. Actually, apparently he appears in the roller coaster musical episode, but let's just pretend we never see him again. Isabella apologizes to Phineas for doubting him earlier, and the two make up. And the episode ends with all of Danville walking to the Fletcher/Flynn household to get some snacks. All right now.
Hello, entire lower half of Amazing Superhero here. I guess there's no glory in thighs.
Man, look at Ferb. I feel bad for him. This is exactly how Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko felt watching Stan Lee take all the credit for creating the Marvel superheroes. Y'all don't know about that though. But anyway, yeah, the episode ends with the narrator guy signing us all out. Thanks, narrator guy. Alright, so this is definitely, for me, the most divisive episode yet. There are things that I like about it, but I do have some issues. For instance, I know we're not supposed to like Cockapoo, obviously, but I feel like there was a better way to handle him. I 100% feel like they should have gone with a more sympathetic route with the character. His whole thing is that he's never had a good day in his life, so therefore, he doesn't want anyone else to have a good day. We don't really get into why though. His life is just bad off rip. I mean, granted, it's implied that there are issues with his wife and stuff, but I think it would have been better if you had some sort of flashback showing all the times as a kid where he almost had a good day, but it was squandered by something happening. Think about all the things we used to like as kids that made our childhood. Like, oh, 8-year-old Kaka is about to get his first bike, but then a truck runs over it. 15-year-old Kaka is about to ask out his crush, but then some guy steals her from him. 18-year-old Kaka is about to get his first car, but then that same truck that ran over his bike also ran over his car somehow. That way this episode could have ended with Phineas being a little sympathetic and being like, hey dude, I know your life is tough. Let me and my brother try to give you the best day ever. Which, to be fair, was actually attempted. But then everything kind of fell apart when Kaka said, oh nah, it's too hot outside to help you guys. Wham, wham, wham. Like, really? I feel like that could have ended a little better and would have made sitting through 20 minutes of this irritating and unfunny character relatively bearable. As for Stiller himself, he was fine, I guess. I feel like it was kind of weird to bring in one of the biggest movie stars at the time just to waste him on a character like this, but alright. Fortunately though, just about everything else outside of his character was pretty solid. I liked the superhero vibe of the episode. I liked Isabella's little Lois Lane subplot. Candace was kind of annoying, but when isn't she? The mom came in and did her thing, which is always nice to see, and Phineas was, well, Phineas. I will say, Phineas and Ferb's humor can be hit or miss with me sometimes, and in this episode, there definitely was a good amount of misses, but still, it was a 7 out of 10. Definitely not one of my favorites, but it's not bad. My favorite episode of Phineas and Ferb, though, is Out of Tune, where they create a cartoon with superpowered versions of themselves. Now, that one is sick.